we all know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Sitting down, ready to work on that big project, or maybe just relax with a good book, but then suddenly you're scrolling endlessly through social media or clicking through news articles. It's like our brains are wired for distraction these days.
It really is a sign of the times, isn't it? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly bombarded with notifications and information overload. It feels like the world is designed to grab our attention every second of the day.
Exactly. And, you sent over that fascinating podcast, The Science of Focus, how AI can train your brain. And I've got to say, the idea of using AI to, like, reclaim our focus, it's intriguing,
Right.
but also a little sci-fi, don't you think?
Yeah, it does sound pretty futuristic at first, but the truth is AI is already being used in a lot of ways that directly affect our brains.
Yeah.
What really gets me is how it's going beyond simple tasks and is beginning to sort of unravel how we think and focus, like the complexities of it all.
So how does that even work? How can AI even begin to understand something as intricate and nuanced as the human brain?
Okay, so think of it this way. Your brain is always producing electrical signals, kind of like a symphony of brainwaves, right?
Okay.
And AI, using things like EEG or neurofeedback devices, can basically listen to this symphony and
Yeah.
start to decode it, like recognizing the different
So
instruments.
it's not like it's reading our minds, but more like interpreting the electrical activity. Is that right?
Exactly. And different brainwave patterns are associated with different mental states. So like when you're super focused, you tend to have more of those beta waves. But when your mind starts to wander, you see those alpha waves, which are usually linked to more of a relaxed state kind of taking over. So AI can learn to recognize these patterns and actually translate them.
So it's like AI is a conductor learning to recognize those tiny changes in the orchestra of our brains. That's a really cool analogy. But how does all that translate into actually training our focus?
Well, one way is using something called neurofeedback. Imagine you're trying to meditate, but your mind just keeps jumping all over the place. A neurofeedback device with AI could detect those distractions, by picking up on those brainwave patterns and then give you instant feedback. It could be a subtle sound or a visual cue, almost like a gentle nudge to bring you back to that focused state.
Oh, that's interesting. Like having a personal brain coach whispering, hey, your mind is wandering. Gently bring it back.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can see how that could work. And you mentioned in the podcast you sent over some tools that use AI for focus, right?
Yes, absolutely. There are a bunch of applications out there. One example is Focus at Will. It uses AI to create music specifically designed to improve concentration.
Oh, wow.
So it analyzes your responses to different sounds and adjusts the music as you listen to help you reach that optimal focus state. There's also the Muse headband. It uses EEG tech to track what's happening in your brain while you're meditating.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it actually gives you feedback on whether you're in a focused state, a calm state, or if your mind is just wandering.
Wow. It's wild to think we can actually see what's going on in our brains while we're meditating. But does just using these tools actually like change how our brains work over time? I mean, can we really train our brains to be more focused?
Well, that gets into this whole concept of neuroplasticity, which is, the brain's incredible ability to adapt and rewire itself based on what we experience. Like, it's why learning a new language or playing an instrument can actually physically change your brain structure.
So it's not just about using these AI tools in the moment, but like the possibility of changing how our brains function long term.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really exciting about AI is that it has the potential to personalize and even accelerate this whole neuroplasticity process. For example, picture an AI system that learns your specific brainwave patterns and then creates a focused training program just for you, tailored to your needs.
So instead of a one size fits all approach, it's like having a custom workout plan for your brain.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And as you use the program, the AI can keep adapting and refining the training based on how you're doing, helping you strengthen those neural pathways linked to focus and attention.
Okay, so this is where like my inner skeptic comes in. It all sounds amazing, but are there any downsides to like relying on AI to train our brains? Could we become too dependent on these tools, almost like they're mental crutches?
That's a really, really good question. It's like with anything else. Too much reliance on external tools can sometimes weaken our own natural abilities. You think about GPS navigation. While it's super helpful, like if we use it all the time, we might start losing our own sense of direction.
It's about finding the right balance, I guess, using these tools to boost our focus, but not letting them completely take over.
Exactly. It's about giving us the power to understand and manage our own minds better, rather than just handing that responsibility over to technology.
Right. And whenever we talk about tech and the brain, it's hard not to think about data privacy. If these AI systems are gathering all this information about our brainwaves, who has access to it? That seems kind of scary.
Yeah, that's a huge concern, for sure. I mean, brain data is so personal and sensitive. We need to be asking some tough questions about how this data is being collected, stored, and used. Transparency and informed consent are crucial.
Definitely. It raises all these ethical questions, doesn't it? It feels like we need to make sure this tech is being developed and used responsibly.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that needs to involve everyone: neuroscientists, AI experts, ethicists, and of course, the public. We got to ensure that the way this technology is developed and used aligns with our values as a society.
I think that's so important. It's easy to just get caught up in the excitement of new technology without stopping to think about the possible downsides. But let's maybe switch gears a little bit. If someone listening to this is interested in trying out AI-powered focus training, where would you suggest they start?
Well, there are some great resources out there if you want to explore this stuff without going all in. One option is to check out some of the focus apps available. Many of them actually use AI algorithms to personalize your experience and track your progress.
So instead of like mindlessly scrolling through social media, you could use an app to train your brain to focus. That's a pretty good trade-off. What else?
Right? Apps are a pretty easy way to start. But what if someone wants something like more immersive, something that really gets into those brain waves?
Then you might want to look into neurofeedback devices, like the Muse headband we talked about. Those give you real-time feedback on your brain activity, so you can actually see how your mind reacts to different things, different stimuli or techniques.
That you can see inside your own mind. And over time, you can actually learn to control those brainwave patterns,
Right.
right? Yeah, exactly. It's a form of biofeedback where you're basically training your brain to recognize and regulate its own activity. And some research has shown that neurofeedback can be really helpful for improving focus, reducing stress, and even managing some cognitive conditions.
That's pretty amazing, but I know not everyone's comfortable with wearing a device on their head. Are there any, like, low-tech ways to work on focus, stuff people can do every day?
Oh, for sure. Even something as simple as mindfulness meditation can be super powerful for training your attention. Just taking a few minutes every day to focus on your breath or the sensations in your body can really help strengthen those mental muscles.
Like going to the gym for your brain.
Yeah,
And anyone can do that no matter how tech-savvy they are or how much money they have.
exactly. And honestly, just being more aware of your tech habits can make a big difference too. Setting limits on screen time, turning off those notifications, and having some tech-free zones can really help you reclaim your focus.
It's about being mindful of how we use technology, not letting it use us. So as we wrap up this deep dive into AI and focus training, what's the biggest thing you hope people listening will take away from this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that we all have the power to shape our own focus. Technology can be a helpful tool, but it's not going to magically solve everything. It's all about understanding how our brains work, trying different things out, and finding what works best for each of us.
That's such a good point. It's not about letting AI take over. It's about using these tools to empower ourselves, to become more focused, more mindful, and ultimately more in control of our own minds. Well, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. And to everyone listening out there, remember, the journey to a more focused mind is ongoing. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep believing in your own ability to shape your focus and unlock your